Pat, and that's what we're going to use this evening to start our meeting. So if you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There was great conversation at the beginning, and you always hate to interrupt it, but welcome everyone to our meeting tonight. We're going to start this evening with our consent agenda, trusting that all city commissioners have had a chance to read through the minutes and our mayor appointments tonight.
I so move to approve.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, we have several.
Would you like to take care of this other business
Oh, yeah,
first?
thank you for reminding me. We have a special guest here with us this evening that is coming to present. So if you want to come up and maybe just tell us who you are and why you're here this evening. Okay.
My name is Olivia Lyles. I am one of the sponsors for Circle of Friends Club at Newton High School. For those of you who don't know, Circle of Friends is a club that promotes inclusion for students with disabilities and those living with adversity. At the high school, we really focus on building those friendships between our students and giving them many opportunities to do that. The last 2 weeks, we have been selling pies from Carriage Crossing for our fundraiser. The students have done a great job so far. The proceeds from those sales are going to help us go on field trips and do other activities with the club. There was an employee who wishes to stay anonymous that wanted us to present a pie to the City Commission. So on behalf of this anonymous, amazing employee and Circle of Friends Club, I would like to present a Snicker bar cream cheese pie to the City Commission.
And the mayor has made it a declaration that we're not sharing because it's not big enough for everybody in the room. So.
Isn't that convenient?
Yeah. But I will share with my fellow commissioners. How's that?
Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
I move we adjourn.
We will work for pie, so. All right, now I was just so excited to move on with the meeting because I knew there was going to be pie waiting for us at the end. We're going to start with our item number 3 tonight is consider a proclamation declaring April 28th, 2022 as Arbor Day in Newton.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jackie Cribble in the City of Newton, with the City of Newton Park Department. And I was just going to give you a little bit of information. This Thursday at 8:30, we're going to be celebrating Arbor Day with Slate Creek Elementary with a first grade class there of about 30 students. So that'll be interesting. And then in the afternoon, we are going to be celebrating with Northridge Elementary with about 41 third graders. So we will be planting a couple shade trees. Both on the school properties there, so they will be able to see that tree grow and take care of it. This is our 46th year of Tree City USA that we've been a part of that program, as well as our 3rd year of Tree Cities of the World. We were granted both of those again for last year. So I will go ahead and read the proclamation. Okay. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas Newton has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices.
Now therefore, I, Clint McBroom, Mayor of the City of Newton, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2022 as Arbor Day in the City of Newton and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
We'll need a motion and a second.
I like that motion.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. If no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
All right, item number 4 is to consider a proclamation declaring May 1st through the 7th of 2022 as Small Business Week.
Is Miss Rachel here from the chamber?
No, but Diane is here.
Diane.
I'm sorry.
Do you need here? You can come and,
or-
you got a copy of it
Or,
there?
yeah, or,
I thought that's what you were here for, actually.
I'm
so.
sorry, I was looking for Rachel.
Oh, this is why.
This is why.
Details.
Yeah.
Diane Robertson with the Newton Area Chamber of Commerce for proclamation for Small Business Week. Whereas the American entrepreneurial spirit is a defining quality of our nation, which time and again has lifted us to new heights and carried us through our greatest challenges. And whereas small businesses are not only the engines of our economic progress, they are the heart and soul of our communities. And whereas small businesses define our communities, drive innovation, and create the products and services that enrich our lives and solve global problems. And whereas Newton is proud to be home to many small businesses and serve as a welcoming home to new entrepreneurs. And
Now therefore, I, Clint McBroom, Mayor of the City of Newton, Kansas, do hereby proclaim May 1st through the 7th of 2022 as National Small Business Week, and call upon the people of Newton to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance.
I move we proclaim May 1st through 7th as Small Business Week, Mr. Mayor.
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Without any further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Diane, thank you for filling in, too. Yep. All right, and it is proclamation night. So item number 5 is to consider a proclamation declaring May as Historic Preservation Month. Kelly.
Yes, sir. Evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This proclamation is for National Preservation Month, which is sponsored by the National Parks Office in partnership with the State Historic Preservation Office, which is the SHPO. So, whereas local historic preservation is an effective tool for revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability, and whereas historic preservation can celebrate the diverse parts of our nation and save the places where history was made. Whereas Newton is proud to be known for our nationally registered historic districts and properties, and whereas historic preservation is supported by the Newton North Newton Historic Preservation Commission, Harvey County Historical Society, and Kansas State Historic Preservation Office.
Now therefore, I, Clint McBroom, Mayor of the City of Newton, Kansas, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as National Preservation Month and call upon the people of Newton to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance.
I move that we accept this proclamation.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Without any further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item number 6, Lori from the county, consider a proclamation declaring May as Bike Month, May 16th through the 22nd is Bike to Work Week, and May 20th is Bike to Work Day.
We got a lot of them in one. I am Lori Kessler. I am with the Healthy Harvey Coalition and with Walk and Roll Harvey, which is our local biking and walking advocacy organization. Whereas the bicycle is an economical, healthy, convenient, and environmentally sound form of transportation and is an excellent tool for recreation and enjoyment of Newton's scenic beauty, and whereas the City of Newton is implementing bikeway improvements throughout the city to encourage and facilitate safe and convenient travel by bicycle, and whereas the City of Newton's roads and trail systems attract bicyclists each year, providing economic health, transportation, tourism, and scenic beauty, and whereas the League of American Bicyclists, Walk and Roll Harvey County, bicycle clubs, schools, parks, and recreation departments, police departments, hospitals, companies, and civic groups throughout the country will be promoting bicycling as a leisure activity as well as an environmentally friendly alternative to the automobile during the month of May 2022. And whereas the education of bicyclists and motorists as to the proper and safe operation of bicycles is important to ensure the safety and comfort of all users.
Now therefore, I, Clint McBroom, Mayor of Newton, Kansas, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as National Bike Month in Newton, the week of May 16th through May 22nd as Bike to Work Week, And May 20th is Bike to Work Day, and I urge all residents to join me in this special observance.
I would move that we make all of those.
That works. Save your energy for Bike to Work Week.
I'm saying, I need pie.
I second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. If no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Can I interject a question
Of
here?
course.
I was thinking that we typically have a proclamation here somewhere with regard to National Police Week. Oh, uh-oh. Okay. Well, when I saw that, I'm thinking, well, that's in the middle of May. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, May 15th through the 21st, so, okay.
yes,
Stay tuned.
yes. We promise we will not forget.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, item number 7 tonight, that's all of our proclamations, but item number 7, consider request from Mennonite Housing for support of a multifamily residential application for LIHTC from KHRC for Phase 2 of Harvest Point.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you this evening is a request from developer Mennonite Housing of Wichita for application they're about to make to Kansas Housing Resources Corporation, which is KHRC, for what's called low-income housing tax credits. LIHTC is the acronym. This morning, we were privileged to have them on site and do a groundbreaking for Phase 1, which you will see on the screen right here on the southeast corner of that development. And typically, developers have to make application to KHRC for these tax credits multiple years in a row. So even though we've just done a groundbreaking to begin Phase 1, we are now starting the application process towards Phase 2, which is on this northeast corner right here, or will be eventually. And so what the developers requesting tonight for your consideration is a letter that we have provided to them in the past that helps them gain additional points on their tax credit applications. And it would be consideration of what they call either a waiver or a credit for fees, and those specifically go towards, excuse me, I want to make sure I said specifically what they go towards here. I apologize.
In our notes, it says
Yeah,
toward
it's-
water tap fees.
Yeah, water,
tap fees.
sewer, and building permits, because we do have other fees such as inspections and things that we are not allowed to waive. And so staff would suggest you've supported that request from them in the past, and what we would plan to do is reimburse ourselves, because remember, the engineering division and the general fund operate off of those fees for service. That's what pays for those staffing and, you know, those licensures and permits and those kind of things. So we would request that you consider approval of this letter of support, and knowing that if they are not awarded the tax credits, the money would not be expended. And we would write such a letter coming from me, on behalf of you all. And like I said, if it is approved, which we hope it will be, but it's probably several years out in the application process, then we would consider reimbursing ourselves from the economic development funds, which is specifically what those things are laid aside for. You
Any
have questions
or
about the
discussion?
project? Sorry, I know it's kind of, we've talked about this quite a bit over the years. and-
have.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, we'll take a motion to approve that request.
I move that we approve this request.
I will second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve this request. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, item number 8, Suzanne, receive an update regarding the Newton Public Library design status.
Yes, Commissioners, if you recall, in November of last year, the City Commission approved moving forward with a construction design for a new public library. And knowing that construction costs have increased over the past few years, you asked us to bring back an update for you when we got kind of in the middle of the process here. And once the architect got further, you kind of wanted to know where we were at with estimates. So staff and city staff and public library staff have been meeting with the architect every few weeks since November, and we have looked at the operational side of the library and how that would fit into a new building. We've also looked at construction cost and considered value engineering options. Some of the things I might point out to you, we made several changes to the design that we thought would work well with a new library, but that the public could live with and staff could live with, and we thought it wouldn't be a huge change to things. For instance, one thing that engineers always point out, if you look at the parking layout here at the new library, remember, we don't have parking specific to the library today. We have a public parking lot that we call public library parking, but anybody can park there. But in the new library layout, we have a parking lot. And the architect had this drawn in. It looked lovely, had a lot of curves and things. And engineers know that contractors like to build things straight. And so we compressed the parking a tad and made some straight lines, and we know that that changes costs. While looking at these things, that's one example. Another example, there was in the original layout and in the original estimate, an area that would, for trash bins and things like that, that was pretty substantial with concrete. We know that the library utilizes the polycarts, that system that we have, and so we didn't need that big enclosure. We'd be able to tuck those polycarts up against the building. So those were some items, a couple of items on the exterior. There's some structural steel joists that were changed to bar joists. If you look at the next, can you go one more for me? We'll come back to that one. When you start looking at the exterior, this is kind of the elevations that were shown before. And these are just examples. There's a bunch of examples that we've been looking at as I've putting together the construction design. There's a beam that's going to be going across, when you look at the west elevation, that will lessen the amount of glass on that side, but it will still have a nice open feeling. But that was able to add some value engineering to the project, meaning taking away costs. We also had a third-party estimator that does estimating on projects like this, specifically on libraries as well, look at this, and they were able to give us a better cost, and I've included in your packet for you kind of the layout on the library and where funding lays today. While we've been looking at the design and looking at costs, remember the fundraising has been going on as well. And so if you look at the top portion of this, and I guess we could talk a bit here about the layout of the library too before we go into the details on costs, because this looks very similar to what the original inside layout of the library was going to be like. But we've made some changes to the study rooms. We've made changes to the restrooms, some significant changes to the layout on the restrooms, been able to compress some of the office areas and look at how technology would play into this and how storage would need to be, and looked at really hard numbers on how much seating needs to be in the different meeting rooms to be able to make sure we're using the space well in the new layout, if you will. And so this is it's very similar, but we've just made tweaks to this so that we could get better costs when we were having the estimating done on the project. And remember, we've had costs have went up due to pandemic and every other thing that's going on in the world today. We wanted to make sure that as we were looking at all these changes, the costs that have been rising, we also are making changes. Just for instance, I mentioned restrooms, because nowadays in a public facility like this, the need is more for a family restroom or multiple family restrooms instead of just a women's and a men's. And so you'll notice up in the top right-hand corner here, we're looking at 6 individual family restrooms instead of like a men's restroom and a women's restroom. And then there's there's one other restroom over in the children's area. And then
Is that it?
that one's not a restroom there, but at any rate, there's little details that we're looking at for the layout that has helped with the costs as we go. So then you start looking at the costs, and on this chart here, and I think it's in maybe not.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's in the packet. You have a budget here, and in green is shown the funding. And the total on the funding here, remember when we started, we said we were looking at $8.5 million on the project. And the library was also putting in the $246,000 that would be paying for the consultant that is the sub-consultant to HBM, who is the architect that's doing the fundraising component. And the fundraising that's going on at the same time, remember, is being done The consultant is assisting, but there is the campaign leadership committee for the library, which is a volunteer group, is doing all of the fundraising work. And they go out in little groups and they're talking to individuals about donations, whether it's someone that may have some kind of a family gift they're going to give, or if it's a business that's going to give a gift, or they've even met with North Newton about what they might contribute to the project. And those folks are all volunteers that are working on this project. And originally, you see that we were looking at private funds of $2.7 million, and they are on track to continue that. Remember that Robert Swanson with Swanson & House was here and spoke to you in November. And that group that's helping our volunteers, they're on track. They have raised $1.81 million as of the time of this memo. It may have increased by today, but I didn't ask. And so they're on track to get the $2.7 million before we are ready to finish out the project. That would give the total of the funding amount here still remains at the $8.5 million when you look at the part in green. Then you go to the expenses. We've got the consultant's fees and then the construction estimate that was done by the third-party estimator with the value engineering reductions that we've been looking at here is the 7.174, so $7,174,539. Then we have other pieces to the project that are some of the library interiors, the furniture and things, all of the things that go inside of the library there at the $425,000, technology and equipment at the $300,000, miscellaneous expenses, and I've listed those out here of the $200,000. Then we still have some contingencies. There's two separate contingencies that are listed here, 5% for design and engineering, and then a 5% construction contingency. These may be decreased as we continue on with the design process, but you see the total is at the $10 million. The difference would be in what the original project cost and the expenses, the $1.3 million. Well, as we were looking at this, the library board has continued to be involved in this process as well. And they looked at this and said, look, we're having a lot of changes. We know that the costs have been increasing. And the library board has committed to an additional $1.2 million. That was as of April 11th at their board meeting. They voted unanimously to approve the $1.2 million additional to what they had committed up above in the original portion. That leaves a difference in the cost for what we believe the estimate for the library is as of today. And the design is continuing, and we're looking at things that we can do to decrease. The difference is $119,000. We also have listed below here, we have a working list of alternates that would be bid as well. You can see, I've listed some of those. One thing that is shown, and Kelly might flip, well, you can see it on the top, on the south elevation, and then go back to the next slide. One item that's listed here on the alternates is this mural system, and you'll see there over on the left-hand side of the east elevation is a location on the building for a mural if we wanted to have that added. Go back to the other one then. This, if you see south elevation here, this would be the view of the library if you were driving along on Broadway and you looked over to Military Park, you would see, that would be what you would see at the library itself. And so that's one of the items that is an alternate that would be available to add when we went through the bidding process. I think all in all, things are looking really well, and we wanted to give you this update because you had asked, hey, keep us posted where we're at, and we will continue the design process and continue to refine all the numbers and expect to come back to you in the fall, probably around November, with the full construction drawings and all of our estimates and everything ready to put the project out to bid for construction in 2023. Do you have any questions for us? We have a group of library folks that are here, and Carrie, our library director, is here to help with if you have any questions. A lot of folks that are supporting the project.
So then you're trying to target maybe the middle of December or the 1st of January to let bids out on the streets?
As you know, that's when I like to bid the projects. We tend to get pretty good bids that that time of year because contractors are trying to stack up their schedule for the next calendar year.
And then for right now, that difference of 119,600 is just kind of floating?
It's floating out there. Yep.
And what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, we'll see, because as I said, these contingencies that we're working with as we move forward with design, there's going to be some things that are there's going to be some things that are going to be a decrease. And as we go along, we are choosing things that work into the design. We'll have to see where we're at, and as we have estimates. Certainly I know the library, if you would like to, as a commission, say that, hey, you'd make up the difference, I know they would love to hear that.
Really?
Yeah, we know they would. And I know that you all know, because we've had multiple projects that we've had to bid lately that certainly are coming in higher than are anticipated. But on a project of this size, this scale, that has went on this long, for us to have a difference of under $200,000 in the estimate, I think is, that's really a positive story for Newton and for the project.
Susanna, on the, and maybe a library person could answer this question, if this isn't for the public domain, that's fine as well. I would accept that tonight. Just wondering on the other 1.2 million of the library, I noticed the 1.3 is going to be paid 65,000 over 20 years. How is that other portion going to be paid? Is the city going to guarantee that through a bond, or?
That would be a cash payment that would be made up front.
One time? Okay. Is there anything?
That's the way I understood it from the meeting. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything that we're missing from the original plans that was discussed? And I don't remember exactly when. I remember we had the meeting at the Meridian Center. It was before COVID, but after we were elected, so sometime in that 3 months. I mean, everything before COVID kind of seems foggy at this point, but is there anything from the original meeting to now that has already been axed that's not part? I mean, I could go back and look from notes from a couple years ago, but I thought I remembered like some of the more technology-related stuff, like 3D printer or something like that. Is that gone? I didn't see it on the drawing. Maybe I'm just missing it, but.
Makerspace.
We wouldn't list 3D printers, but if you want to speak specifically to Makerspace, that is not an item that gets, we're trying to look forward, and Carrie's done a really good job of trying to look forward in new libraries, and that is not something that we believe is needed in a new facility. And she could speak specifically to that.
Please come up, yeah. We'd love to hear from you.
Carrie Cusick, Newton Public Library. So yes, what you see in the center, and it's super tiny print on the screen, you see something that's called a digital lab. And this was not a cost decision. This was made before we had estimates. Makerspaces, it's kind of a broad term. In public libraries, they often go 3 different directions, broadly speaking. They can go like a crafty kind of direction. You end up with sewing machines, crickets. They can go more of the industrial direction, your 3D printers, your laser cutters. And then what seems to be kind of the newest wave is more of a digital makerspace where you have audio and video recording equipment to support digital content creation. And so when we looked at this, I looked at sort of 3 questions. Number one, in a building this size, how much space can we dedicate to kind of a makerspace idea? Also, how much staff time and expertise? Those types of spaces tend to be extremely staff intensive and require very specific expertise. And also looked at what are the ongoing costs. When you look at equipment, how expensive is it to repair, to maintain, to replace? Consumables, when you get into 3D printers, you have to buy resin. Do we charge people for that? Well, if we charge people, is it equal access? Because now we're charging. They're really complicated. And so what I chose as a programmatic decision is to go the digital direction. And we actually received a almost $14,000 Arbor grant last year. We've had supply chain issues, so we're hopefully getting it set up, a trial run of what I'm calling the Digital Access Lab that has a lot of this recording equipment for podcasting, for video recording. What's great is it also, if you look at that space, we also get, for example, somebody comes in and they need to have a place to do a Zoom interview because that's a thing now, or they need to watch an online class for grad school. So it's a really flexible space. So Ideally, if I had all the storage rooms in the world, I would buy 3D printers and all these things and pull them out into my meeting rooms, because we want to keep flexibility is a real key element of this project. And in a library and community of our size, we have to be careful how specialized we try to go. So that's kind of the thought process. So you see the digital lab, that's kind of where we see that component reflected in the new design. I also would like to just point out, because I'm really excited about it, the original designs included a drive-through book drop. We have changed that to a drive-through service window. And you see how it's integrated into the staff areas, so we don't have to have staff solely there. They're doing their other work, but they can attend to people through the window, and I'm really excited about that, so I just had to say it while I had the mic.
Thank you.
And that was one of the big items that was asked for in public meetings too.
Yeah, I think I remember.
Thank you for that explanation. That helped.
Thank you.
Any other questions while I'm standing here?
Thank you.
So we'll have to borrow 5.8 million then? Because they're making 65,000 payments, so we're
We'll get the whole thing, and then they'll,
Yes.
each year, they'll give us $65,000 to apply for the payment.
right. So just for our benefit in a era of rising interest rates, if you would pull, leave the $1.3 million in there, but show what our payment will be, because effectively we're paying, the city will be paying the interest on the 1.3 million. So if you put that number in there, it should be in there like at the present value, because like the first year, if it's 2% interest, we'll be paying $26,000 more. So if you could show, just so we know how much to plan for in the future, what our payment would be, assuming interest rates at various increments, and then show the 65 coming off of that, and then that'll give us a real number for what the payment is. Yeah.
Well.
And then we can equate that into mills, so we know. We're doing some real heavy budgeting right now for extra things, so kind of need that number. Thank you.
I'll make one more comment, and actually a compliment to whoever is working on the design and planning it. I'm impressed with, it seems like your guys' best use of space for what is employee area only. So like your director's office, I know it's only 146 square feet. That's not very big. So I just want to say thank you for making best use of space for library usage. Sometimes we find it seems like it can be a little bit heavy on the administration side. I don't think that's the case here. So just want to point that out and say I think that was a good use of space.
And kudos for the hard work.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of the volunteers working on this as well.
For sure.
They are rock stars in this.
They are,
Yeah,
yeah,
they are.
totally impressed.
Well, I'd move that we receive that report.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of receiving the report as it was given, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item number 9, recycling. Consider a contract for recycling with Nisly Brothers and Suzanne and Chris.
Yes, Commissioners. As you recall, we had discussions about recycling at our last meeting, and you landed on an option. And because we received a proposal from Nisly Brothers that had 2 options, and you elected that they would be the ones that would collect, the recyclables, they would also collect the payment. And so we have been working since that meeting to try and get a contract together with them and a recycling ordinance. I handed out to you at your seat the most current version, and I believe Denise was able to get all this in the packet that was uploaded just before the meeting. But I didn't know if that would happen, so I gave you a copy at your seat. And in this packet, I don't know, let's see, the ordinance is first. And I printed it out to show you some of the changes that were being made so that you understood that, understanding that we're basically just changing it so that it reads that the recyclables would be collected by a contractor instead of by the city. And we've changed some of the wording slightly so that the recycle agreement is referenced. And Chris can speak to any of the legalities of all of this. There was not a significant amount of changes to this, but we also added the price that the contractor is expecting to pay. The other thing I want to point out to you that is, you may hear some people commenting about this, for our service that we have had for collection of solid waste for years has been what we call a two-bin system or a two-cart system. And so you have a cart for recyclables, you have a cart for trash. And when we started to the point where we no longer had a mandatory recycling system, and if people did not want to recycle, we provided them with a second trash cart, because the thought is you have this amount of solid waste and it's going to fit in these two carts. And if you take the recycling cart away, it needs to go in a trash cart. And so we have left that the same here, so that if we have a resident that chooses to recycle with Nisly, then we would leave them with one trash cart. If they choose not to, we provide them with two trash carts. If you want a third trash cart, then you would pay for that trash cart to be tipped. That means you're going to have a big family and constantly have a whole lot more trash. If it's just a couple of times, if it's on a birthday, it's at holidays, you have extra bags that you sit next to your cart, we wouldn't think that would be necessary. But if it's just constant additional, then you would pay for an additional cart. And so,
Will Nisly's, then they'll give us a list who's recycling?
yeah, yes, they will. What we were waiting to do was to get the contract with them ready, and then we have a list of our those that were recyclers to send to them. Then they will send out the letters. We haven't went through that process because we wanted to make sure we were going to have a contract ready.
And they'll update that.
And then they will send it out, and if we get calls about it, they also will be asked to call Nisly direct, and they'll be ready as of May 2nd, assuming this gets approved, to receive calls from individuals that want to recycle. And remember that they will be charging on a quarterly basis, not on a monthly basis. That's why the dollar amounts are slightly different than that $12.60 that we talked about per month before, okay? And then the contract, Chris, do you want to speak to the contract?
Sure. What you have is the latest version of the contract. We don't have an agreement between the parties. We're down to just a couple issues. That being said, we wanted to provide you with the latest copy. If you're comfortable with it, we would ask you to approve it in its current form, subject to any changes that are approved by the city engineer in consultation with the city attorney. But I would stand for any questions in terms of the contract as it's drafted now. We've had some back and forth on it, and we're hoping to resolve them tomorrow, those issues. We don't want to wait until your next meeting to finalize. It clearly wouldn't be an overhaul of the draft that you have. It would be essentially minor tweaks, if any.
What were some of the things in the contract that we needed to work on, or that we asked for changes or negotiation on?
We're okay with this current form. It will be their asks that we're working through.
Oh, okay, all right.
Right.
And again, the city's not on the hook financially if somebody doesn't pay, or if it drops below 300.
If it falls below 300, they have an out provision where they can cancel the contract.
We're not obligated financially at all in this
No.
process. Okay.
No.
And then if it falls below 300, there just are no more options for recycling, right?
They would have an option. They could continue to operate with that lower threshold, or they could walk away.
And this ordinance allows
the
another
citizen-
carrier, right? This ordinance allows other carriers to operate, not underneath the city's
This ordinance is
recommendation.
open to outside carriers if they have an approved city agreement.
And
So
remember,
somebody-
they do pay a franchise fee as well.
Right.
So somebody can't just come in, they have to come before, and we have to give them approval to operate within
Right,
the city.
that's section
Just for clarification, for
Yes.
anybody that may be watching or listening, yes.
18101L, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. due to the fact that there's not a whole lot of money in recycling, I wouldn't assume that we're going to have a bunch of contractors knocking on our door asking to come pick up all the recyclables in Newton. Okay.
And, you know, you did mention that if it falls below 300, it wouldn't necessarily mean that it goes away. It means that they have an out in the contract, but they could continue if it falls under 300, or they could say, this contract, we're done, or they could offer a different cost per customer at that time.
Always subject to renegotiation
Right.
on changing events.
Our first item on here is to consider the contract. If somebody wants to make a
I
motion
would
for that,
make
if
a
there's more
motion that
questions.
we
Thank you.
approve the contract with Nisly Brothers,
Subject to?
subject to final revisions.
Final revisions approved by the city engineer in consultation with the city attorney.
I think that's what I just said.
That's what I heard.
Yes.
That's what I heard, Rod.
That's what I heard, Rod.
And may I offer a comment in this
Sure.
process? You've already made the motion. Do we have to have a second in discussion, or?
I'll withdraw my motion, and you can talk about it, and then I'll
Okay.
remove.
Okay, so between last meeting and now, I had some good communication with Mr. Yoder, who was here. I was very impressed, and he wanted to share some things with me after that last meeting that we didn't have time to do. And so he took the time to email me, and then we had some discussion. And I was really pleased with his approach. I was very impressed with the approach to the business and that. And I think what I'm most impressed with now is that there are several citizens that want this particular service. And having, I think, the best understanding of this now, more so than before, and the fact that the city is not going to be responsible as financially. If these citizens choose to do this, then that's between them and Nisly. And so if I have the opportunity to be a part of offering that to them, then I want to be able to do that. So that is my comment. And I'm thankful for Mr. Yoder, who took the time to reach out to me. And because like I said the last time, if I am wrong about anything, I want to be the first one to say it. And so he very gently set me straight on some of the issues with regard to the carts. So I was very thankful for that. So that helps me in making a decision on behalf of our citizens.
I would remove
You
exactly the way I said it last time.
And I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the contract with Nisly Brothers with Rod's verbiage in there, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item B is to consider an ordinance amending Chapter 18 of this Code of the City regarding recycling.
That ordinance number would be 5072-22.
I move to approve 5072-22.
All right, there's a motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Chris, could you remind us on that one, when does that ordinance then come into effect?
Upon publication.
Upon publication, okay.
Later this week or next week.
And we probably want to have the contract solidified before we would
That's right.
publish. Just so you know.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, item number 10 is to receive a request for snow fencing for the Junior Rodeo on June 11th and 12th of 2022. Thank you to all the library people as you guys take off. Thank you.
That cleaned them out.
That's an exodus.
They were just sticking around to hear about the trash.
We
Right,
were going
right,
to share our pie. Yeah,
No pipe for you?
no pie for you.
Okay, Junior Rodeo.
Yes,
Denise.
thank you. This is a request that has come to you every year for the last couple years. It's for the Junior Rodeo that will be happening at the Fairground Rodeo Arena, and that would be June 11 and 12. And they are asking to have snow fencing put up. I have talked with our staff, and they are okay with this request, so I would ask that you would approve.
Okay.
I would move that we approve that.
I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you.
I love the way they filled out the form. It's last year's form, and they just marked it.
I just noticed that. That's good.
That was pretty cool.
That's efficient.
Yes.
Yeah.
It works.
Next year it'll be two scratches.
2 lines, yeah.
Can we give them whiteout?
I don't
You're
know if it's
welcome
in
to
the
do
budget.
with it
Let's
as
get
they
the budget
please.
going first.
Amen.
Yeah, we need to have budget discussions before we start giving out whiteout to everybody.
Exactly.
All right, item 11 is to consider amending Chapter 22, Article 3 of the Code of City regarding cross-connection. Suzanne?
Yes, Commissioners, this certainly is all about cross-connections and backflow prevention devices. Properties that have irrigation systems, fire sprinklers, dental equipment, cooling towers, commercial dishwashers, swimming pools, anything that would be a direct connection to the water system that does not have an air gap. Those items are required to have a backflow prevention device on their water service line according to the plumbing code. The current city code speaks to the plumbing code as a uniform plumbing code, but what we are utilizing is the international plumbing code. So there's been some updates and we haven't got caught up in the city code. So we need to do some cleanup language for this. We also need to make some slight changes because of the backflow prevention devices and how that is utilized and tracked. The state is asking all communities to do better, and it's important that we have these backflow prevention devices on these applications to prevent water from an external use from draining back into the city water system and contaminating the public water supply with bad bacteria. Like all equipment, those backflow devices, they can fail, and so they need to be checked, they need to be inspected, and annual testing is required of those devices. In the current code and in the proposed change, a licensed professional has to do that. We have some that respond and give us updates frequently on those. We have others that don't, and we're going to need to start really keeping track of that. And that is the direction that we're heading because the state is saying you must. In order for us to be in compliance, we're making sure that all those annual inspections are completed with repairs when those are required. This is also, the code here also is showing a change in this ordinance to the code to require irrigation well permits, a drain layer license, backflow device licenses, so that we can make sure that those backflow prevention devices are put on the irrigation systems when they're connected to a well, because the state also does not want anything to flow back into the groundwater as well. And so these changes have been made in the current ordinance that's before you. In this code update, we also would like to turn our current plumbing advisory board into a plumbing appeals board. This is made up of our local plumbers, and this gives the contractor a way to appeal something if they think our staff is not interpreting the code correctly. Then it would go before that appeals board. And it's a change of language and how it's set up here. And many of the cities around are doing that, including Wichita, which is frequently referenced with local contractors. So the financial implications of this, well permits and fire suppression systems would be included at the $10 per each on the permit. And the drain layers license would be $20 as well as the irrigation license. And so we're asking that you would consider approval of the proposed ordinance.
I have a question.
I will try to answer.
How logistically on wells and sprinklers and such, how, if everything expires on the 31st of December, how are they going to get tested and renewed when things are typically shut down at that point in time and winterized?
Well, they just have to be tested within the year.
Okay.
I mean, it has to be within a year of when that system was put in place. And so if it was put in, say it was put in December, it can be tested prior to a shutdown.
Okay. And it's annual testing?
Annual testing. And oh, good heavens. The backflow device license is obtained through the state of Kansas. They provide that. Or I'm sorry, the backflow prevention professional certification is obtained through the
The
state of
license for the
Kansas.
individual doing that testing.
And then they obtain their local license here.
So, I mean, this is a Chris thing as well. So when this goes into effect, then what is the compliance period for all of those wells that don't have them and all of those sprinkler systems that may or may not have such devices or that haven't been inspected or enforced? I mean, there's a lot going on here.
There is.
In addition to that, and just my question was is it going to be everybody in the city has to come into compliance, or is this for new systems only?
Right.
Well, we should want everybody to come into compliance, because if we have a backflow device that fails and we end up with that in the system,
Sure.
it could be a boil order for the entire community.
Sure, yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know whether we have that legally set, but I thought we did.
I mean, wanting versus
Because it was
enforcement, I guess,
already
is
in
what
the
I'm wondering.
code.
Yeah, right.
We're just changing it to get it compact, more understandable,
Was it,
everything in
was,
place.
what about wells, though? And I don't have a well
Wells
in my
were
house.
not in there.
What about
That's right.
irrigation wells?
Irrigation wells was not in there, and
Okay.
it has been added. That's correct.
So will
They be
we,
grandfathered?
yeah.
How does that, I'm not sure legally how that works.
I would want to double check that and report back, and if you don't feel comfortable tabling or passing this ordinance without that answer, we could table it to the next meeting.
I would like to, because
wanna make sure
I
I
would
have
like to
a-
wait, because
I
it
wanna
seems
make
like
sure
there's
it's
probably a lot of wells that
Right.
probably don't have those on them, so that could affect a
Can we
lot of
table
people.
it and bring it back
Yeah,
at your
oh,
next
for
meeting?
sure. Yeah.
Okay, we'll answer that.
Move that we table that item?
Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Is there anything else that we need to check on in the meantime? Anybody else have any questions or anything that we can give them today, so we're not?
If you think of anything, please just reach out to staff.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to table that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item number 12 is to consider participation in the federal fund exchange program.
Yes, Commissioners, this is something that you review each year, that the state of Kansas provides the opportunity for the funds. And it's called a federal fund exchange program because what we're doing is exchanging funds at 90 cents on the dollar. We have been participating in this program since its inception in 2011. We don't have to do the exchange, but if we choose to keep every dollar of that funding, we have to do all of the projects in accordance with all of those state and federal specifications. If we want to exchange it for the 90 cents on the dollar, we can utilize our local specs, which our local contractors are comfortable with. And it was a real big deal, many years ago because they had metrics and we didn't like that. But it's still a significant difference that we would see a price decrease if we are able to do it with our own specifications. And this way, we can also utilize it for multiple different programs. This year, we're suggesting that we would utilize these funds to help with our any overage to our overlay program and to the 2022 C-CLIP program on K-15 and any of our other paving projects that would be occurring this year. Because remember, this is a reimbursement program where we have to submit all the paperwork to get, we have to have already paid it out and show those paid invoices, and then we submit a reimbursement, and that has to be completed by September, sometime in September of this year. So what we're asking you to do is to approve the federal fund exchange. We have $262,000 that is $262,624.05 that is available to exchange, which means we end up with $236,361.65 if you choose to exchange it. And we would recommend that you do that.
We've been doing it that way for years.
Yes.
So I would move that we approve being a part of the federal fund exchange program.
I second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 13 is consider a storm culvert rehabilitation and pavement repair along Southeast 4th Street between South Walnut Street and South Kansas. Suzanne.
Yes, Commissioners. This is an interesting project. In November of '21, we sent out a request for qualifications to obtain an engineering firm that would assist with design on a box culvert that is there you go, the circle is on the screen, right at Slate Creek on Southeast 4th, just west of Kansas. Staff discovered that this box is in very bad condition. We've got some pictures that show that too, I think, here. It is in need of replacement. And so we went through the process of obtaining an engineer that would be interested in doing the work. We received one engineering firm out of several that were mailed to that were interested in the project itself. This box, I didn't put it in the memo, I don't remember the age on it, but it is very old, and we're seeing deterioration. The top of the bridge itself, or the box itself, there are some holes in it. We've done some patching on it, but this is not one that we want to sit a trash truck or a fire truck on and let it idle there. This is one that is needing repair and replacement. Along with the project, we also have a water line that is crossing here. And when the box gets taken out, we're going to need to repair that as well. The other thing that you'll notice here, the second shot there on the screen shows the floodway and the floodplain. The floodway is shown in red. That's the FEMA regulated floodway. And we're looking at two options here for you to consider, and this is something that we would look at in the design process. And we may not want to consider one of them, but we're looking at two options, one being it would be full replacement of the box, and at the same time, we need to take care of the water line improvements, and we would be looking at pavement repair along this block. It's a brick street. The bricks would be taken out, and we would put in concrete or asphalt, depending on bid prices. But the second option would be to remove the box culvert and not replace it. We don't know if that's a fully viable option at this point based on hydraulics itself, because once you remove that box, then go back, Kelly, to the last screen. You can see how the red area kind of necks down a little bit, and that's whenever you have a box that is maybe restricting flow, it can neck down your flow and then show that your floodway lines, because of elevation, are narrowed a bit. Once you take the box out, then there's more free flow, you can get more flow of water, and it may change those lines downstream. So hydraulically, we have to run a bunch of hydraulic engineering calculations, compare that to the existing flows that are on file with FEMA and the state of Kansas. And all of this has to get permitted through the Division of Water Resources, regardless of which option is selected. You have 12 different agencies they have to send to from an environmental standpoint. This is a large project. I have also sent out requests for information to our police chief and the fire chief about whether it would even be something they would consider and find viable if we were to not replace the box and put a hammerhead, if you will, which is like a cul-de-sac, but it's kind of a square turnaround. It's not as friendly, if you will, as a cul-de-sac on each side, and you wouldn't be able to cross the creek at this location in one of the options. We would be looking at both of those in the design process to see where we might land and come back to you before we would finish up the design. A project like this for full replacement of the box and the street repairs and the water line work, we're going to be looking anywhere from $650,000 to $900,000. This is, it's a block where the pavement is expensive, but the box itself and all of the permitting work and everything that's going to go along with it, it's going to be an expensive project. The consultant that we have selected, Wilson & Company, are very capable of doing the work, and we would like to enter into design services, a contract with them to perform the design work on the project. If you are adamant that you would not like to consider the one option, then certainly we would take that out of the picture. I'm sure the chiefs, I have talked with them via email, and I know that it's probably the preference, as I understand it. They'd still like to be able to go across if they could. That's the preference, but I'd let them speak to this if they would like to.
I mean, I think it would be wise for us to be able to keep the street going across if we can.
Yeah, especially with the multifamily home,
Yeah.
apartments there and everything. So,
Okay.
But recognizing the need for it to be replaced too. So, yeah, I would be in favor of moving forward with the design
Okay.
service agreement.
But there's no appetite for taking it out completely?
Right. No.
I don't think, I'm not.
No.
Okay. And I think that can just be consensus. I mean, I can
Yeah.
see head shakes here.
Yeah.
I see
Replace with
3
fonts.
heads shaking.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So do you need a motion from us to approve a,
Yes, I would like for you to approve us moving forward with the project by approving the engineering agreement.
okay.
I so move.
one second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to move forward with the agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, please understand, we have to bring all options to you. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no,
consideration.
I think it's good. I think we appreciate hearing all options. Sometimes if they're not presented, we don't know them. I mean, I don't know that I ever would have thought, oh, maybe we should take it out. That probably wouldn't have crossed my mind. So thank you for presenting that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Are you affected in this area? Do you live? Okay. You're on that street there probably, or? And you want to still be able to drive through? Yes, sir. Okay, all right. The right decision. Okay, thank you. All right, item number 14 is to consider a management service agreement with Wild Prairie Event Center. And Chris, you're taking this one.
I've got it, and also Michael Lunsford's here. He'll tag team this with me. You've got an agreement in the packet. It's a management services agreement. It's between the city and Wild Prairie Event Center LLC. This essentially allows the city to manage certain events at their venue. It's a 2-year term, and it gives out provisions to either party to cancel with 30 days notice for any reason at all. Really set up as a trial run to see how it goes. It outlines the duties of both parties, the owner and the manager. Essentially breaks it up into 4 types of events that they would have at that event center. One's where the manager serves as the caterer, so that's the Meridian Center staff providing the food and all of those services. Those events in which the person rents the facility and uses an outside caterer, that involves less involvement from Meridian Center staff, although because of the dynamics in terms of setting up the event, the city would still be entitled to a share of that booking fee for those events. The third are owner events, should the owner just want to have a private event there without the involvement of Meridian Center staff. There's no revenue component for the city in those events. And then we also have a catch-all other events for anything that might not fit into one of those lanes that the parties would work in good faith to work through those details. It works through all the responsibilities and how the revenue is shared. Michael can add, of course, a lot more color to it. I would stand for any questions about the agreement. It has been approved by the owner in its current form, but if you have any questions or anything, we can always go back and amend as well. So stand for any questions. Michael would as well.
Yeah, do we have any financial obligation to, as far as utilities or cost of the building or anything like
No.
that?
It's specific in the agreement. They pay for all costs associated with operating the venue in terms of exactly that, utilities and those types of things.
Okay.
There is a provision about liability for maybe damage done by a guest or third party. Essentially, they take on that risk absent, gross negligence or a very high standard. We do have insurance coverage. They have insurance coverage. Both of those are memorialized in the agreement.
Okay.
So what's in it for the city to enter into this role?
Michael's going to answer that better than me, but I'm going to take a shot while he's walking up. And essentially, we've got the Meridian Center, which is a great venue. Staff would indicate that Wild Prairie Event Center is very complementary in terms of the amenities that it offers. So as Michael receives calls, he can then, it's just another venue that he can utilize for events and still get a revenue component off of it. But go for it.
Right, and to that point, and good evening, Commissioners. Michael Lunsford, City of Newton, Meridian Center, 1420 East Broadway Court. The Vogts, the owners of the Wild Prairie Event Center, as most of you know, have created a wonderful, beautiful amenity in our community. The pandemic was very difficult for our entire industry, and to their credit, they not only survived the pandemic, but actually enhanced their property and added to the amenities that they have, and I think most of you have seen that. So to Chris's point, this just gives us an opportunity for the Meridian Center to generate some positive cash flow without taking on any additional obligations for cost of ownership. It allows them to provide a great service. We feel like we're kind of experts in the operation of an event center. Gives us the opportunity for them to create great service and not having to increase their operating cost. They, as I mentioned, they did survive the pandemic. They enhanced their property, but unfortunately, they're currently trying to run the property by themselves. They have in the past had managers who did that for them, had operators who did that for them, and they came to us and alluded to the fact that they could use some operational help. We felt like that was a great opportunity. So to the immediate or the specific question, in the situation where we just provide services, it would be minimal staffing for an event that's booked there, where we're not providing catering services. We have a revenue split on that, which will cover it will cover all of our operating expense and generate a little positive cash flow. We hope that where we can generate some serious revenue is that we will, as we consult with the people who are booking for that venue, we will obviously offer our catering services as well, and we retain 100% of that revenue. So in that scenario where we are acting as we're operating the event and providing catering services, our positive cash flow goes up incrementally.
Thank you.
And so you're pretty confident that when there are private events, owner retaining 60% and us receiving 40%, that's enough to cover our costs, our overhead, and maybe a little bit of positive cash flow?
Yes, Commissioner. In those situations, we would be providing minimal staffing just to make sure that we're turning on lights, we're answering the questions. So we've definitely crunched those numbers and feel confident that we will exceed our expense in that scenario.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion from the bench? If not, we can have a motion to move forward with this service agreement, management service agreement.
I would so move.
I second that.
Oh.
Go ahead, give it to her.
Okay, Commissioner Cry made a motion and Commissioner Valentine gave a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, and I think we're all happy to be in a relationship with the Vogts and Wild Prairie Event Center. You're right, it is a very nice facility out there. All right, item number 15 is consider a mural lighting agreement with Oak LLC.
And we'll ask to table that to your next meeting.
Okay.
Agreement is not completed.
All right. You need a motion?
For that?
Yes.
Please.
I move we table item number 15.
I will second that.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. All of those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Thank you.
We do have a beautiful picture of what the tie-dyed mural will look like for you, though. We're just working on finalizing the terms of the actual agreement to pay for the lighting and maintenance and those kinds of things.
Thank you. On that building, I sat behind here tonight and ate my supper before and was looking at it and imagining it. Is it on the, what would be further, I guess, west end of the building? Is it centered on the big gray wall?
No, it's centered. In fact, if you go, there's two digitally prepared pieces of duct tape. I'm kidding. Two pieces of red duct tape that are right centered in the middle of the building.
Okay.
And that's
So
where
from the ground to the top of the building is where
They're getting ready.
Okay.
they're
All right.
ready. They're
Cool.
ready.
I'll drive closer by there then.
We're looking
I did
forward
not see
to it.
red duct tape. I mean, I must have missed the
And if you would have been there at the right time, I think one of our guys was there power washing it today. So
Are you doing the black background?
yeah, we're going to do the tuck pointing and all the preparation, the priming, the painting, and then they're going to put this beautiful mural on.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
It's going to be a huge benefit to the community.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. All right. So that motion is, or that item is tabled. Item number 16 is discuss next step for law enforcement advisory panel. And before we begin, we do want to give a chance for anybody, Lance, even you, if anybody wants to come up and speak to this item tonight, they can as well. I didn't know some of the library people that were here earlier may want to speak, but they all left, so I assume not. So, all right. Item number 16.
Yes, sir. I will take that for you to start with, if that's all right. We've had this discussion at the past several meetings about LEAP, the Law Enforcement Advisory Panel. And at your last meeting, you had asked staff to bring back a copy of the original ordinance from 2006 and an amendment that was made in 2020. Those are both included in your packet for your reference. Some of the feedback we received from you and other members of the panel, some previous members of the panel, I know Chief has spoken to several members, even maybe back to the founding. Some of the very original members are back and forth. Yeah, they've had quite the changes over the years. And so you had asked us to please take a look at it and kind of maybe provide you with some options moving forward. So I put some bullet points in your packet that we received as feedback from you all. So this is just for a point of conversation. If you could give us some more definitive direction this evening, City Attorney and I will work to prepare an actual ordinance that we would bring back to you. So at your last meeting, and then as a brief recap, some of the feedback we've received from you is our suggestion would be to rescind the current ordinance from 2020, which was an amendment to the original from 2006. We would ask you to give us some direction to create a new ordinance that will follow the KSA, the statute, which gives the city the authority and the ability to create such an advisory panel for the law enforcement agencies of the city. We would recommend maybe a reduction in the number of members. The current ordinance allows for anywhere between 9 and 15, and we would recommend you take that maybe to 5, maybe 7 as a maximum, but we can tell you from experience with our Planning Commission and our Historic Preservation Commission that are 9 members, even with 2 jurisdictions, 2 cities working on those joint agencies, it's often difficult to find a time when everyone can meet and we can get a quorum. So we would think that hopefully a reduction in the number of members, but then also being strategic about those 5 newly created seats. They would be obviously appointed by the mayor and approved by the city commission based on the following suggestions for representation. We would suggest someone from the Newton faith-based community, such as maybe the Ministerial Alliance, representation from NCRJ, the Newton Community for Racial Justice Group, representation from Newton Community Mental Health. That could be Newton Medical Center, it might be Prairie View, it might be Health Ministries, it could be Mirror. I think you've got options there to work with. And then we would appoint 2 remaining at-large members that represent Newton's community diversity. And that could be anyone you all should so choose that you feel is representative of the groups that we might need to be working with and working to improve relations towards. We would also recommend you have 2 ex officio members, maybe someone from the Newton Police Department and then someone from the City Attorney's Office and the Law Department. Again, purpose and function, the way it's written now, you'd asked us to maybe broaden that scope a little bit. So some suggestions we had would be to advise in policy development, education, community outreach, and communications related to bias-based policing by law enforcement officers and agencies under Newton's jurisdiction in the city. To receive, review, and provide feedback to the Newton Chief of Police on complaints related to bias-based policing and law enforcement actions. And then support services and training, we want to be sure that we are providing staff support, even if it's just administratively, putting out the meeting notices, the agendas, arranging those kind of things, taking meeting minutes. I think that's been maybe a point where we failed them a bit in the past, this group. I think that they were very diligent and tried to do it on their own, and maybe that just got to be a bit much for the volunteers. So we'd want to make sure we provide that to them. And then organization and meetings, we would want to have some presiding officers, of course, like designated chair and a vice chair annually. We would recommend that these meetings take place quarterly and or on an as-needed basis, such as if a complaint were filed and the chief needed to make an investigation. And then quorum and voting, quorum requirements should be a simple majority of the appointed member. So if we have 3 show up and you've got 5 appointed members, 3 would be the quorum. So that's just, again, a starting place. Some of the feedback we received from you and other members of the public that have emailed us and called and visited with us. So I would give it back to the bench for you all, and Chris and I would be happy to answer questions. But we were just looking for some additional guidance from you this evening so we can bring you back an ordinance and get the group restructured to your, to the benefit of the community. Okay. And Chief, have I missed anything important we've discussed? Thanks.
I think it's pretty well-rounded. I don't know what additional I can add to that. I mean,
Well, we tried to incorporate all the feedback we've been hearing from different angles. We want to make sure that we're broadening the scope of the group. I think that was one of the things we heard from you all and the community was it was so narrow in 2006, and really mostly it was racially based at that point in time, and that's the point in the world we were, and I think we all feel fortunate that that is a component we always want to be aware of, but it is one component of whether it would be biased on a disability or, whether it's, like I said, it could be race. It could be any number of things in this day and age, especially. We want to make sure we have that venue to address all of those contingencies, plus more we probably haven't come across yet or thought of yet.
Kelly, do you have all that recorded in notes, or did you just do that all from memory?
It is in the agenda packet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking.
Why do you
at
ask?
the
I'm sorry. Did I miss something? I apologize.
No.
It's,
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Okay, it's on the very first page. I was looking at the two ordinances in the agenda packet.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm
Okay,
so sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I see all the notes there now, the 1 through 7.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Looks to me like you hit the sweet spot.
We're trying. We want to make sure we're including everything that, like I said, we tried to be as inclusive as we possibly could and try to
Very thorough.
make it wide enough to maybe unforeseen contingencies, because something will come up, and that is the, that's why we have those opportunities.
I think it's important that we try to, and what you've documented so far reflects that, is representation of those populations that we are aware of, and then the at-large members, or for those that maybe would like representation, could reach out to somebody on the commission or city staff to ask to be considered. Yeah. And I think it's very good to have that wide availability.
Yes, sir. And I neglected to mention, for most of your boards and commissions, in fact, all of them, when we have a vacancy, typically we try to put the word out there and we actually ask people to apply, especially when we're creating an entire new board. We want the opportunity for anyone interested to apply to you, and we have a form they can fill out, and we would bring this to you for your consideration, and then you all would vet those applications. If you want additional information on someone, their background, their educational experience, their professional experience, whatever that might be, we can get that for you, and then you all would decide who gets appointed to those seats.
Lance, do you have anything you want to add to the conversation? You've been part of LEAP in the past. Okay. Or if you want, go ahead.
Well, Lance Gormley, former member of LEAP, maybe? I don't know yet. Well, I'm interested to see the ordinance. I think that it's very good that we're broadening the scope quite a bit to deal with issues that otherwise we hadn't really been focused on in the past. I'd like to be a part of that going forward in the future. I'm interested to see the ordinance and how it's written. So.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion from the bench at all about this?
So what action did you want from us tonight?
Could just direct staff to come back with an ordinance consistent with the contents of the memo that was provided.
Yep.
Just a consensus then.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be fine. And if there is anything else that you would like included that we have discussed, or maybe I neglected to get in the notes or anything like that, or that Chief may think of in the interim if we think of something else between.
You'll approve the final version of the ordinance.
Yeah, the ordinance will still come back to you. So.
Yeah. No, I think you guys got
I'm
it.
good with that.
All of
I'm
it.
good with the
Affirmative here.
Head shaky yes.
Okay. I see head shaky yes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that brings us to our citizens forum, to which no one signed up for.
We had an item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we did. Sure. I'm still looking at the Snicker bar cream cheese pie here, so. Can't help it. Okay, I'll make a motion that we add a new item regarding ground lease for the TAP leasing company. So we'll need a second for that.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, Chris, you're going to take this one.
Yeah, and Brian Plummer, airport manager, is here, and he can help assist. But basically, it's two items. It's a ground lease with TAP Leasing Company, and it's also a lease termination with the Jerry Sibley Trust. Essentially, the Jerry Sibley Trust has a land lease at the airport. They have built a hangar. They are selling that hangar. So to help effectuate that sale, the city needs to terminate the existing ground lease and then enter into a new lease. The ground lease that you see, it's very consistent with the last one that we just did with Avcon. We lined up the term, Brian, I believe, very close to the term that was remaining on the Jerry Sibley Trust. What was left, I believe it's 10 or 11 years. There is an increase on the ground lease rate, I believe from 12 cents to 15 cents. That's per year. It's 10,000 square feet, so it'd be $1,500. Brian?
And 15 cents a square foot is our current going rate for FAA students for market rate. Yes, sir?
Yeah, and all this is just to, again,
Technical difficulties. Did Stand by.
You can turn it back on.
Sounds like it's, there you go.
okay, so what we need to do is, with them selling the property, or we're selling the improvement on the land, for them to be able to close on that improvement for TAP Industries to, or LLC to do that, they need to have the ground lease in effect for that improvement. So that's what we would like to encourage, is that and they are amenable to that. They agreed to the 10-year term. They agreed to the 15 cents a square foot per year. And so I would recommend that we not only terminate the lease with this Jerry Sibley Trust, but also approve the lease with TAP doing business as Tyree Ag.
And with any long-term ground lease, it's subject to approval by our partners, the county. We had the termination completely signed prior to the agenda deadline last week. Brian was able to get the new ground lease signed today. We have it drafted for a May 1st effective date, so rather than kicking this out, we thought we would add it as a late agenda item for you guys to approve here tonight and then kick it over to the county for final approval next Tuesday.
Two separate motions or one?
Two separate motions if you could.
Yeah, the first motion will be to establish a ground lease with TAP Leasing Company.
Yeah.
I move we terminate the lease.
I second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to terminate the lease with the Jerry Sibley Trust. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, and the second one then is for the ground lease with TAP Leasing Company.
Make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to establish the ground lease with TAP Leasing Company. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you for letting me add that to your agenda last minute.
Yep. Thank you for doing that. Okay, we'll go around. There's no one signed up for citizens forum, so Commissioner Valentine, we'll start with you.
Just thank you to all our staff. You take such good care of us. You work very hard, and we appreciate all that you do. Thank you to our first responders. We appreciate you greatly. Keep up the good work. And I was going to say, too, that I enjoyed getting to be there today at the groundbreaking for Mennonite, the Mennonite Housing project. Newton is ready, and he said that he has over 70 applicants so far. So he really is confident that when they get weeding through that, find out who actually qualifies, they're going to do well to fill those spots. So that's good. So we have much more to look forward to.
Vice Mayor Kane.
Yeah, I appreciate the groundbreaking this morning, and I also appreciate watching, I don't mean any pun intended here, but the locomotive has left the station here in Newton, and we are making some very significant forward progress. That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Stinnett.
Yeah,
Commissioner Cry.
Sure. We had a program at Rotary, I guess it was just a week ago, seemed like a month ago. But we had a special agent with Homeland Security there, and John Faria. Do you know John? Really a nice guy. And Rotary's taken an active role in trying to stop child trafficking and sex trafficking. And John gave a real interesting program. He didn't know that that there was 3 commissioners in the room, but he gave really big kudos to especially you, Chief, on how you train your employees. And the leadership you show. He said he sent several people up here and made me really proud.
Definitely.
Okay, Kelly?
Just thank you all for your leadership and also for the kudos you give us. We have an amazing team, and we have a lot going on in the community right now. And several of us have started teasing that we feel like those plate spinners you used to see at the circus. It's like, how many plates can we keep going before they all crash? So we're hopeful that we are doing our due diligence and to make sure none of them crash. So just thank you for your support, and we always appreciate the guidance you give us.
Okay. Chris?
No, sir.
Suzanne?
No, sir.
Donna?
I will tell you, in case you were wondering, we sent in our annual report for our ARPA funds. We're done with that this year. It was very simple. They made it real simple for us. We took the $10 million standard allowance for revenue loss, and I just had to fill out a few little buttons on the Treasury portal, and we're done for this year.
For 2021 or for
2021's money.
21's?
And we'll get more coming in May.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. I just have 2 things quickly. I would just say to other commissioners, we have several items coming up in May for budget work review stuff, so just be paying attention for those things. And I know that all of you will see that, but just thought I'd throw that out there. I was waiting for Kelly to say something about it. She usually reminds us of our busy calendars. So the second thing is I had the pleasure today of spending part of my morning with Chris, our city attorney at the high school, and we presented to business law and a government class. They had a special name for it. I can't remember what it was specifically, but it was interesting to listen to their questions and just be able to interact with them for a little bit. I think most people know that I'm not going back to the high school next year, and I was asked today by another teacher. They said, "What have you learned?" And I said, I have more faith and more hope for the future with the generation that we have in school now than I would have ever had I not had interaction with those kids. And they are resilient. I think they've been taught that. This was primarily seniors today, so especially even with them too. They've lived through the pandemic in their high school career. Most of them lost out on time in special programs and sports programs, and just impressed with their leadership ability. And they genuinely are a very caring community of students. And so I think we have the future is very bright, not only for the city with everything we have going on, but also with our students. The second thing is they asked today, they go, what exciting is happening in the city right now? And there were so many things to mention, and it just made me feel good being the mayor, being able to just tell them all those things. And they love to hear about what's going in front of the Walmart.
Yeah.
So everyone does. In fact, we had a teacher who heard us talking about it, came in from another room and said, "Is that true?" And I said, yes. So, all right, nothing else. Meeting adjourned tonight.